Alright guys, welcome back to Our World Outdoors. Today we get to talk about one of my favorite pieces of gear, the pine down quilt. So, technically called the pine down blanket, this thing is one of my favorite pieces of gear, honestly. It is versatile, it is amazing, it can be shared with sharing weight, all of my favorite things. We did an initial review on it, but as we've gone through the winter, this has become a clutch piece of gear for us in multiple ways. So I just want to go back over it today. I really want to go in depth, talk about its uses, where it's been used, how it's been used, and why it's still my favorite quilt as of this day. So let's get into it. So let's take a moment to go over the specs. I'm not going to go crazy and try and measure everything out. I'm going to just run off my bullet points. I have them saved on my phone because there's so many. I want to get you all that information. I want you to get it quick. I don't want to be here dragging it out all day. If you want a more in-depth look, you can always jump back and see our original video on it. So, let's get started. The shell material is actually a 20D 1.1 ounce downproof nylon. Alright? Now, the insulation is an 850 fill Allied Hyperdry down, and it's RDS certified and Blue Sign approved. The temperature rating on this is down to 40 degrees, and I want to talk about that more because 40 degrees would be a worst case scenario. 50 degrees is pretty comfortable. 45 degrees with the right clothing on is kind of that middle ground. I could say you could get to 45 with a long full set of clothing on. Probably wouldn't try and go much beyond that just with this. Now, it has a 2-inch loft sewn through baffles, and the baffle width on it is 4.25 inches. It does have channel cords along each side, so you could basically tie it up and do any configuration you really would want. It has hidden stretchy cords with cord locks along the short sides, which is also how we close up the ends. Has 3 pairs of snaps along the side to close up a foot box, 4 hanging loops, and the overall dimensions by their measurements is 54 by 86. All right, we've pulled the measurements with a tape. You can see our other video for that. Now, the blanket total weight is 19.2 ounces or 544 grams. The insulation weight that's in it is 10.5 ounces or 298 grams. It does come with a stuff sack, and that is 0.4 of an ounce or 12 grams. Now, we've gone through the specs on it, but here's the thing. Specs can't tell you usage. Alright, super light stuff sack, very rigid. I get thrown inside the bag all the time and beat up. It is large, so it doesn't compress very well. But what you can do is push it down and then we take our pillows, our blow up pillows, put it on top and push it down some more and then zip it closed, and that kind of makes it smaller. Or you can put clothes on top, put something else in the bag and pull it, and it basically will compress it down farther. But the bag itself won't compress it down very much. That said, it's been in its bag. I didn't let it come out and loft up any, but it's already starting to. You can see the thickness starting to fill out along the edge. Now, what most people don't fully understand about this is if you are a land shantou owner like I am, this thing is perfect for as wide as this tent is. Alright, so when me and my wife lay sideways, because we're side sleepers, and we cuddle up against each other and put this over ourselves, then what happens is it's basically the same width, well, maybe an inch wider than this tent. So when it drapes down over us on those cool fall evenings or on the early spring evenings, it covers us up like a blanket would, closing in on us like a quilt. We put the foot box together and both slide our legs in the foot box and basically sleep on our sides that way. If I get hot, I can flip my side up. If my wife gets hot, she can flip her side up. It's not good for winter though, because it's obviously not that temperature range. But speaking on that, that's where this thing gets interesting. Because we have 15-degree bags, but our sleeping quilts, our period down sleeping quilts, even though they're 15, technically 25 is probably a comfortable range. But sometimes we want to be out and it might go lower. Simple fix is to bring this along with us, draw it up over top of our quilts, and it adds a whole second layer of warmth. Is it perfect? No. But it'll definitely push that temperature range down farther than we can go. Especially when we side sleep and come together, because once again, like I said, it's like having an entire second quilt all the way around you, because we make this into a foot box and then put both of our foot boxes inside that. Missy and Tori have used it in this way on some girl trips together too. So I know it's been tested by all three of us, and I know that I can depend on it to work for not just me and my wife, but when the two of them have been in here together, they've pulled it up over them in the middle of the night on their trips in order to stay warm. So it works for more people than just me and Missy. Now, the price factor is what throws people, because this is kind of that middle quilt that you could go with a Costco quilt, but it can't go as low as this one can. You can go with a heavier quilt that can go down a lower temperature, but you're going to pay more. So this is like that middle ground, that no man's land. So if I was just going to go buy something for myself, I would probably have to think twice about this, because this is $100 from drop.com, which is formerly Mass Drop. Now, $100 seems like a lot compared to a Costco quilt, but this thing is huge compared to a Costco quilt. If you have one person wrapping up in this thing is massive. It also can double as an underquilt because of all the connection points. It makes an excellent mid-season top quilt for a hammock. So the versatility in itself is what sells the quilt. It can do so many different things, and the one thing that I can say for it, even over our Peria, is it dries fast. All right, if this thing gets damp, it dries super fast, and that's one of the benefits of not being in a compression sack, is even in the sack it'll dry faster. I've come home on trips where I've thrown my backpack in the back of the truck, and obviously it gets warm during the day, so during the back of the truck it actually dries it out in the bag, in the back seat with the sun hitting it, because it's black obviously. Now this does come in a multitude of colors. I think there's 3 or 4 colors. Just have to be whatever you want. I probably wouldn't suggest black because it does soak up the heat so much, but it's really not a big deal. We've never had a problem with it. The $100 price tag is very reasonable if you compare it to going out and trying to buy an underquilt, trying to buy all these things separately, and then you add in being able to take it out in your cold weather temperature, which is reducing your cost of having to buy a super cold weather quilt or bag. So when you're looking at a budget and you're looking to put together gear that can work in any scenario, putting together our Peria down quilt with the pine down blanket quilt, they're just a match made in heaven. Now, we do own Costco quilts for that month or two of the hottest time of the year, but unfortunately I'm a little big for them. So unless I'm laying in a hammock and just trying to have something to drape over me, it's not very useful for me, honestly. It's perfect for my wife because she's shorter. This is kind of my version to fix for me. She can take a Costco quilt, I can take this. If I'm hot, I throw it off. If not, I can pull it on. At 19 ounces to carry, that's nothing. That is nothing. I mean, it is big. You know, you don't really need something this big. You could go out and buy something more expensive, but you're going to be at the same price point anyways. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Now, I'm going to tell you that we have had this thing in sand. We have had this thing in mud. We have had this thing out in the worst of weather, snow, and it's not even dirty. I mean, there's no damage to it. We don't get the odd feather coming out like we do with the Costco quilts. That's a big point to know, because a lot of these quilts shed. This one doesn't. Now, on that, it does take longer than most quilts to fluff up. So if you're the kind of person that likes to come and just drop your bag and set up camp later, you might want to think about changing that style, because to get the loft out of this, it really needs to be set up and spread out for at least 15 or 20 minutes. It's very slow to loft up. Even now, through this video, we're still only about halfway lofted up. So just something to think about if you plan on running this. Now the split baffle down the middle is also nice because sometimes you can double it up and sit by the fire or sit in your tent like this and have it cover your legs or your lap. I also like it because it's very long, so if we've got 2 or 3 of us sitting on a log at a campsite, I can turn it sideways and everybody can have their legs covered on a cool evening. Very versatile piece of gear. That's why it's one of my favorites. I know it's going to find a lot more uses here soon as we get into more hammock camping and stuff like that. So I know that it's going to fit the bill for so many different uses. But it's one of those pieces of gear that I don't think I can find anything to replace it. It does too much. And with some more mountain-like trips coming in the future, I can definitely see the need for it. So I'm going to put links to everything down in the description box, over to mast, to it. You guys can go check it out for yourselves. I do have an earlier video on it where we do more real world measurements with tape measure and all that. Feel free to go check those out and compare it to what the website measurements are. Because in real world measuring, after things loft up, things change. They're not exactly the same. So I hope you enjoyed the review, and if you're not already, take a moment, go down, hit that subscribe button, that way you can see all of our upcoming videos. And if nothing else, make sure you enjoy the gear you use, because it makes all the difference on the enjoyment of your trips. We'll see you in the next one.